everyone, how you doing today? So my last video, we made the ornament using the Joy. Oh, let's do it that way. There we are. So I thought, wow, we've got an ornament, and then we're going to give it for a gift. We got to have a box for it. So keeping in mind, for me, in the videos, that someone that has the Joy might not have a bigger machine like the Maker or a Silhouette or whatever to cut out a box. So I thought, okay, what's the easiest way to do this? And I'm thinking we'll just do it on a scoreboard, and I'll show you mine in a minute. So we're going to be making the box and the lid, and it's the perfect size for the ornament that we used in the last video. And I will link the video about making the words to go on to the Christmas ball on the Joy at the end of this video. And also at the end of the video, I'll put a link on how to make this little bow for the top of the box. So we can make this little bow for the top of the box on the Joy. And I'll also put that at the end of the video, and I'll put it down in the description. So let's get started. I'm just using a piece of cardstock, and this is a little heavier. So I think this is a Crafter's Companion, so I want to say it's like 230 GSM. But you want something that's that's works for a box staying together, not collapsing with just plain paper pads. So 8.5 by 11, or in this case, because it's British, Crafter's Companion, it's 8.25 by, I think it's 11.75. Either way, it'll work, and we can get our box and lid and have some left over. So the first, let me set this aside. Now I'm just going to keep it right there. I'll tilt it down so you can see the box. So the first thing we need is we need to have two pieces of cardstock, one for the box, one for the lid. And like with anything, and I learned this in quilting and fabric, you always cut your bigger piece first, because if you cut your smaller piece first, you might not be able to get the bigger piece done. So we want it 7.5. Oh, and I'm going to switch because I've got the Crafter's Companion guillotine or guillotine, the smaller one. So let me switch to my other cutter. Okay, I switched to my other cutter, which is the Cutter Pillar, and has the light and stuff. And this is a never replace blade on it. It auto sharpens. But Cricut, I think there's a multitude of cutters out there. So you just want to have one that can cut longer things. And in this case, this is their smaller model, but I can open up the arm and get what I need for length. So I'm going to go 7.5. Getting my own. Hope my head's not in your way. 7.5. Always make sure that you're flush up against there. That's my big downfall, is I don't make sure I'm tight up against there. So if I'm a little crooked, then I end up, not having what I need. And here's my 7.5. And I'm going to make sure it is 7.5 square. And I'm going to save this little piece because, all those little pieces help. So that's my 7.5. And for my lid, I need a 4-inch square. So I'm going to go to the 4. And then turn it. And 4. And I have this little sliver left over. Just don't do what I did. This piece looks like it's square, which it is, and it's going to be your lid, but it's not. It's the smaller one, the 4x4. So I'm going to move that out of the way because the other day I grabbed that one instead. And my lid was like a 1/2 inch too big all the way around. Okay, so we have our 7.5 inch square and our 4 inch square, and that's all we need. And you can do a box that has a different color lid from the box. Done whatever works for you, whatever scraps you might have. So I'm going to use my Score Master Crafter's Companion, and again, whatever scoreboard you have will work. And I'm going to take let's take the little piece first. So this is my lid. And on the Score Master, or if you have the board like this from Crafter's Companion, if you look, it'll tell you, first I want to be in inches. And then at the bottom here, it says box lid. So when I do the box lid, I'm using the left-hand side. When I'm using the box base, I'm using the right-hand side. And there's a little note here, box base, and it has an arrow pointing to the right. The reason is it's automatically built in to make the lid a little bit bigger than the box base. I don't have to figure it out. So I'm going to be on my box lid side, and I want to score this at 3/4 on all 4 sides. So what I do, come in just a little bit more, probably can't see it, but I come over to the inch and then I go back 1/4, or go to the 1/2 and then go forward to the 1/4, just so you know exactly where you are. So we want this to be 3/4, so I went to the inch, now I'm coming back and I'm going to score. I'm going to turn it because I'm going to do the exact same thing on all 4 sides. The inch and back 1/4. And so we're at the 3/4. Okay, so that's what we look like. There we go. I want to make it so you can see the scores. And I'm going to set that aside. I'm not going to burnish it yet, so I'm going to set it over here. Now I'm going to take my box, and I'm using my bottom right side, box base, because it gives that little bit of difference, so it'll be a little smaller than that lid. And it's working off the same lines. What happens is, if you look on the left side, there's not much space between the first score line and the edge, or the edge of the board. When you look on the right, there's a little bit more room. So they've adjusted it. I want to say it's 1/8 of an inch. So if you don't have this type of scoreboard, it's 1/8 of an inch. The lid is 1/8 of an inch bigger than the box, which means you have to cut this 4 1/4 in order to get the measurements you want. It's just much easier on this one. I don't have to think about it. So in this case, we have a box. So here's our lid, and that score is just this part that's folded down. Well, we need a lot more folded. So actually, here's the base, and then these 4 sides fold up. So we need more scoring than the lid has. And that's why it's a 7.5 inch square, but it's only making I think it's a 2.5 inch box. So what we want to do is we want to score on the 2.5 on all sides. And I got to remember, I've got to stay over on the right. You see how I was sneaking over to the left? I got to stay on the right. So I want to be at 2.5 on all 4 sides. So 2.5. The light's a little bright for me to read that. So 2.5. And I want to make sure I stay butted up against that side. 2.5. 2.5. Oh, I went off my went off my mark there. I'm trying to keep myself out of the camera. I don't want to put my head over. 2.5. So this is the inside of our box, or the bottom of our box. So that's the size of the box, and the pieces will come up for the sides. And I'm going to just kind of unmark that little spot where I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so now we're done scoring. So now let me get this out of the way. And we're going to need a pair of scissors. And I'm going to burnish with my my scoring tool. So I'm going to take the lid first. And I'm just going to fold and burnish. And I've learned, don't burnish like your life depends on it, because I've actually cracked or split the score line. So just take your time. And we're going to go around to all 4 sides. So now we need to get ready so we're folded on all 4 sides. So now we need to make this into the lid, and we've got to adjust for these corners. So what we're going to do with my little scissors is I'm just going to come in on, and I want to do this the same every time. So let me see if I can come up here. So on the right side of the tab, I'm going to cut up to the score, and then I'm just going to do a little angle. So you see? Oh. There we go. Then I'm just going to turn this, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm on the right side of the tab, or what will become the tab. I'm cutting right on the score line, and then cutting a little angle. Doesn't have to be perfectly the same. It's going to be glued down so you won't see it. I'm turning again. Cut. And cut. So again, turning it one more time. Right side of the tab, or right on that score line. Oh, trying to hold this up and hold my scissors straight at the same time. Okay, so you can see I have a little tab on each side. Let me get another little piece of paper to put under this or over this mat so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, let's see if that works a little bit better. So now there you go. So you can see I've cut on the score line, and then I just did a little crease in. So now we'll be able to just put the glue, and I want to put something down so that I'm not gluing onto my mat. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I just quickly grabbed the piece of paper that has some writing on the back that I was going to throw away. I just don't want to glue on this is my sewing mat. And as careful as I think I'm going to be, I still make a mess. Now, you could use a tape runner. With this color cardstock and the lights, I couldn't see if I was gluing or not. There we go. There we go. So you're gluing really on the top, because the tabs are going to go underneath, fold back, and then this, you want to make sure you line that edge up. And then I'm going to go and do the next one. And you want to make sure that the edge lines up with the edge of the box and the tab doesn't show here on the side. And I'm just going to hold that in place for a minute. Make sure everybody's glued. If you feel like that your tabs are showing here, you can always trim off a little on the other side. See how let me put it here. I'm trimmed on both sides of the tab so that I don't have to worry so much about that tab showing. So you can do that as well. And I want to make sure I wipe my scissors off because I cut right through that glue. I think we're good. Okay, so there's our lid, and you can see inside. There you go. See the tabs are glued to the inside. And while I was showing you the other side, this one shows a little bit. So I'm just going to trim that off. Well, I guess I should come from this way. So I want to make sure I trim just the tab, not the lid. So that's done. And that I always do that first because that's the easier of the two to do. So now we have our box base. And we don't want tabs this size. We don't need them that big. But we're going to do the same exact cutting. So we're going to cut up the side. So again, this is the edge. We're going on that score line. And before I do this cut, because I don't need a tab quite this size, I'm just going to kind of cut this in half. So I'm leaving about 1.5 inches, but it doesn't have to be exact. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to come in, and this time I'll do both sides so you can see, so that you can easily see the tab. I'm going to turn it, cut again, right on the score. So if I went ahead and did this trim, and then I said, oh shoot, I was supposed to trim it here, it doesn't matter, it's okay. And this tab isn't anything to do with this tab, so they don't have to be the exact same size. As a matter of fact, I think I made that a little shorter. We just need to cut some of the bulk out. So we're turning again on the score line, and we're cutting right up to the line that's horizontal. Wasn't a perfect straight cut, it's okay. Here's the spot where I messed up, and it isn't going to matter because it's in the tab. Oop. I want to make sure I don't go past that score line. So there's our box ready. Now it looks more like it's going to be a box. What I didn't do is I didn't do my burnishing first, and that's okay. I'm going to do it now. So I want to do the box sides first. And again, you don't have to be harsh with it. Now I can just do my tabs. And if you burnish those tabs, that when you put this up, it'll just stay together better for you and be a nice clean crease there. So if you have an ornament, a bigger ornament, what you need to concern yourself with is this size here in the middle. So when the sides go up, your ornament fits in there. And generally speaking, whatever size this is what you got to add on to each side so it becomes a square. See? Okay? I'm going to flip this over. And this time, I'll use the tape. So you have to remember when you use tape that you don't have the luxury of moving it around too much to get it straight. If you want to use tape and you need a little help, use your tape and then put a little wet glue on top of it. I think I got everybody. Oh. See, I stuck to the last place I taped. There we go. I'm going to fold this in half and set that aside. If I used it again, I don't want to have all that tape. So this time I'm going to be a little more careful. I'm going to line up that edge before I press the tab. So I'm going to come in, and you can, let me do it from this way. You see, my tab is away from the back. I'm going to line that up with the corner. And because I did that trim on both sides, I don't have to worry about the tab top lining up with right here because I cut it down. And I want to make sure I push in my last one. I'm going to hold it out of the way so it doesn't stick to the side before I want it to. And then I'll just run my finger in there, pushing those tabs down. And our box is ready. So let me got another ornament here. So that fits in there, and it fits in there snugly so that if you don't have tissue paper, it'll be fine. And there's our little lid. And the lid fits on nice. It's not hard to get it off and on. And that way, the person has a place to keep their ornament that you gave them when Christmas is over. They've got a little safe place to keep it in. This one, I did use a little tissue. And when I say a little, there's not a lot of room in there. So this tissue is, let's see, 2, 4, 6. It's about 6.5, and I think it was a rectangle. So I'd say like 6.5 by 6.5. Put it in the center. Push it all down in, and then just kind of scooch the top. And there you go. There we have it. So let's just review for a minute. Okay, you need a 7.5-inch square for the box bottom or the box itself, and a 4-inch square for the lid. The lid is scored on all 4 sides at 3/4 of an inch, and the bottom is scored at 2.5. Again, leave the bottom the way it is, but if you have to make your lid a little bigger, it's 1/8 of an inch, which would be 1/4 of an inch for both sides. So you would fold it at, you would cut it at 4 4 1/4 square, and then you should still be able to follow your same 3/4 instructions, because it just needs to slide on. So this area needs to be that much bigger. This part stays the same 3/4. So and try it. It's just a piece of cardstock. Try it. You might have to adjust it for your likes and the way you want it to fit. But I believe it is an 1/8 of an inch difference. Now, if it's an 1/8 of an inch difference, I'm gonna correct myself. If it's an 1/8 of an inch difference, then this would be 4 1/8 by 4 1/8. So I would try that first. 4 1/8 by 4 1/8, and then still do your 3/4, because it's just this center part that you may have to make a little bit bigger. If you find that's too tight, then go up another 1/8 of an inch. So there we have it. And remember, the next thing we're doing is the little bow. Here it is. To go on the top, and we're going to do this on the Joy because we're trying to do all things Joy. So again, I'll put a link at the end. I'll put a link in the description. One for the ball, and putting the letters or designs on for the Joy, and then this cut on the Joy. So we'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.